My name is Mike Paul. I'm the managing director for InEight for Europe, Middle East, and Africa, known as EMEA. I do have a long history of business and experience in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. But my true background comes from civil engineering. Matter of fact, I went to college for I graduated with a civil engineering degree. I actually went to college for architecture. That was something I wanted to be since the 7th grade. Did my studies with the intention of being an architect, got into Arizona's architecture school and was in it for not even 2 months when I realized that architecture probably wasn't for me, but I was strong in math and science, and the dean said you should go into civil engineering and more jobs. So I transferred over to that college and finished up my schooling in civil engineering. I was in various types of civil and environmental engineering for a couple years, and then wanted to be back in construction. And so I went in from more the construction management side, and I spent time working in the East Coast. I traveled a lot, so I moved every 6 to 12 months for projects, and I was in the East Coast, in Virginia and North Carolina, working on some large civil projects. Finished it up, wanted to come back west, ended up in Colorado working on a big Army-based redevelopment project in Colorado Springs. And eventually, when I settled down, my wife and I moved to Phoenix, where her family was from, and we settled into Phoenix in 2002. I started a grading and landscaping business, and a year in, I'm freshly married and just working crazy hours, and was looking for a more permanent job and was looking at some construction. And a colleague of mine had mentioned Hard Dollar at the time. And I went and just took my resume and knocked on a door and tried to talk to some people at Hard Dollar. And long story short, I was originally hired in 2003. Still quite a few people that were here with the day I started in 2003 are still here. Some that came in right after me are still here. I worked for 4 years for Hard Dollar and went from consulting, kind of a unique business arm we had at the time, into sales, a traditional quota managed salesperson, pre-sales doing demos, got into training and the early stages of our implementations. I left to take over a construction company in Florida, and there were some challenges. That was a merger and acquisition that didn't happen. I ended up, long story short, running supply chain businesses in the Middle East. Eventually, I wanted to come back, and I came back to Phoenix with my family and did some international consulting for large construction projects, trying to put together financing and supply chain and contractors and engineers, and was having some success for a couple of years. And then the market dropped out on me in 2015. Oil prices, some terrorism, a lot of my contracts and projects, even governments were overthrown. So I was thinking about what I wanted to do next, and I called the guys over at Hard Dollar and found out they were acquired by Kiewit. They were renamed InEight, and in May of 2016, I joined back up again, initially to run the global channel, the sales network, the partner network. Got brought into implementation, helping Rick Deans with some implementations. Ended up running the pre-sales department for about a year. And it was right about then I had been working on a couple of sales that were just kind of ended up in my lap, I guess, that took us to Europe and the Middle East. And the company made a decision to reestablish an office over there. And they, in late 2019, asked me if my family and I would end up moving to the Netherlands to run it. We said yes, and we're 2 days from our house hunting and school hunting trip in March of 2020 when COVID shut the world down and everything changed. And long story short, now I'm still running the territory. I did not move. The timing with my family no longer made sense, but through early hours and lots of travel, I do, and a good growing team that is based over there, I run the territory, including sales and business strategy and operations. So. It's never left me. I think most people you're going to talk to that are like this, it never leaves your blood. I knew in middle school that I wanted to be involved in construction. My father was a civil engineer, but By that time, he was working at airports and management. He wasn't even designing airports anymore. But I think it was in my blood. I just loved watching buildings go up and big bridges and pipeline projects. It was always just something that I was intrigued by. That certain people have their interests and things that get them excited when they're trying to figure out a focus on their career. So I knew, like I said, our architecture at the time, and I realized I'm too mathematical. I'm too energetic. I want to be out there in the middle of it, and I think designing and the artistic side didn't fly with me. Even when I graduated and I did some environmental work, I never wanted to sit behind a desk and do design. I wanted to be out there, and I would argue almost have never left it. I had that stint where I was working overseas in supply chain, but that was coming off the heels of some construction work and actually helping supply chain for construction. That when I even went out on my own, I put all of that together. So it's never left me. I don't think it ever will. The exciting thing about doing this at InEight is I'm constantly around it, whether I'm talking to contractors, visiting them, solving problems, watching demos, learning about other companies. It's probably the best of all worlds because I love the job and love being in technology, but still very much a part of construction. If I were just providing materials for a project, it wouldn't probably feel as rewarding as making their life better, their company more profitable, solving problems. There's such a leap from some of the ways people do things on paper or spreadsheets to what we're capable of that it almost feels like they're skipping 20 years of the stuff I dealt with. When you were faxing time cards in and someone was manually putting them in a spreadsheet and then sending them on a disk over to an accounting system, and then they were loading them back in. To be able to do this stuff seamlessly, I can just, with passion, I can speak to, I remember how it used to be, and I know what you're dealing with. And so anytime I think it's like teaching in a way, anytime you can enlighten others to a solution that makes things better and you've experienced it yourself, you don't even feel like you're selling. You're just exposing them to something that makes a difference. And there's so many different ways in the world you can do it. If you're exposing them to art or a story or a person or a culture, this is exposing them to a process that maybe it gets them home earlier at the end of the day. Maybe it beats the number and they get a profit margin that they weren't expecting, or they don't have to deal with the shortage of staff. You feel you're solving problems every time. It's not easy because the customers sometimes struggle with the change, or they might feel that it isn't as good as it sounds. So there's a lot of education and hand-holding and convincing that goes along, but I never feel like it's selling. It's just trying to open their eyes to a way to make things better. I think the one advantage we could take is that we could have these people be a part of that transformation, promote their opportunity to bring technology to disrupt a new industry. You look at what it's done to so many others, there is a excitement and challenge that's come with doing that. Some of our competitors started in construction companies like we did. Some started as Silicon Valley startups that says, hey, where's there a problem that we can solve? I think the fact that just using the tools is making life better, is making buildings go faster or build faster or become more roomy or more affordable. And I think that you can use technology. I think you help bring technology to disrupt one of the world's largest economic sectors, right? It's over $20 trillion a year, something like between 15 and 20% of the global GDP is tied up in some capacity in construction. People have no issues saying, hey, let's go into banking. That looks fun and sexy. I would argue that construction is about as cool as it gets. Look, you got an end product. You've got an effort that's got a tangible outcome at the end that should last for years and decades. We need to turn the story into use technology to change the way the world lives. And that might be a way to do it, right? It's something that I think could resonate. Probably just need to market the industry different to that generation.